this lesson, we are going to learn about evaluating functions. We are in section 2.5 of your textbook on page 213, and we're going to work problem numbers 32 through 50 even. So functions, we are going to very briefly touch on functions in this class. You'll learn more about that in college algebra. But we're going to learn how to evaluate them. So a function is when you see that you've got f of x equals an equation, f of x equals. So on A, they're asking us to find f of 0. B, they want us to find f of 5. And on C, they want us to find f of negative 2. So notice that if we have f of x, all they've done on A is said, okay, replace x with 0. So that's what we're going to do. So they're actually asking us to solve this problem 3 different times. Once when x is 0, then when x is 5, and then when x is negative 2. So we're going to plug 0 in first. So for f of 0, we have 0 squared minus 7 times 0 plus 10. Whenever we plug in a number for a variable, in case you didn't take my Math 94 class, you should always surround that number with parentheses. That'll keep you from making some mistakes. So we have 0 squared, so 0 times 0 is 0. Negative 7 times 0 is 0. And then bring down your 10. So f of 0 equals 10 because 0 plus 0 plus 10 is 10. Okay? Now let's look at f of 5. So I'm going to plug in a 5 everywhere where I see an x. And I'm looking at my original equation, which is up here. So 5 squared is 25. Negative 7 times 5 is negative 35. And then we're going to bring down that 10. Now combine your like terms, or combine all your terms. So 25 minus 35 is negative 10. Negative 10 plus 10 is 0. Your answer, don't be afraid if you get a 0 for an answer. 0 is always a possibility. So just to make sure that we are being clear, the answer when you have f of 0 is 10. The answer when you have f of 5 is 0. And now we need to find what we get when we have f of negative 2. Let's see. Okay, so negative 2 squared means negative 2 times negative 2, which is a positive 4. Negative 7 times negative 2 is a positive 14. And we're going to bring down that 10 at the end. So 4 plus 14 is 18. And then 18 plus 10 is 28. So you should get for your answers, A is 10, B is 0, and C is 28. So now let's look at problem number 34. They've given us another equation, and they say that they want us to find out when f is for A when it's negative 1, for B when it's 0, and then for C when it's 2. So we're going to do f of negative 1 first. So here, you cannot multiply these two together first because you've got to remember your order of operations. Your order of operations are please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Sorry, it's a little hard to see. This is reinforced paper, so all of this has plastic on it. So sorry if it's hard to see. So this is multiplication here. These are exponents. In your order of operations, exponents come before multiplication. So what you have to do is negative 1 squared, which is positive 1, and you have to bring that negative down. So the opposite of negative 1 is positive 1. And so the opposite of 1 is -1. Okay, so hopefully that was clear to you. You have got to do the exponents before you can do the multiplication. So that -1 plus 1, those are going to cancel out, leaving you with an answer of -2. So your answer for A is a -2. Now we're going to look at f of 0. Okay, well, 0 squared is 0. Okay, there is no such thing as a -0, by the way. 0 is neither positive nor is it negative. So our answer here is just going to simply be -2. So we get -2 for -1 and 0. Now let's find what we get when we plug in a 2. So remember, you have to do your 2 squared first. So that gives us a 4. And then the opposite of 2 is -2, and then bring this -2 down. So the opposite of 4 is -4. And remember, whenever you have a negative in front of a set of parentheses, that means what is the opposite of what's in here, okay? Bring everything else down. So -4 minus 2 is -6. -6 minus 2 is -8. Okay, so now let's look at number that does say 36. So f of -1, f of 0, and f of 2. That's what we're looking for on problem number 36. So -1 is first. It's a long problem. You just got to take it step by step. Got to do this exponent first on this term. So we bring the -2 down, -1 to the third power. Let's go where we can work. So -1 times -1 times -1. That's what that means. -1 times -1 is 1. 1 times -1 is -1. So we get a -1 inside of here. 5 times -1 is -5. The opposite of -1 is +1, and then subtract 1. So now -2 times -1 is a +2. And then this 1 minus 1, they're going to cancel anyways because they give you a 0, so we're going to leave that alone. 2 plus -5 is -3. So on 36, we should get a -3, but it looks like I made up. Sorry guys, I made a mistake here. I apologize. Probably noticed there should have been a squared here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to redo this one. So let's try that one more time. I apologize about that mistake. So let's redo it again where we have a -1. Okay. So let's try this again. We found that -1 to the third power is -1. So -1 squared is a +1. Opposite of -1 is 1 minus 1. Okay? So -2 times -1 is 2. 5 times 1 is 5. And then these ones still cancel. 2 plus 5 is 7. So again, I do definitely apologize about that, but you should have gotten a 7 for A. Okay? And I've run out of room, so let me grab another sheet of paper. So now we've got f of 0. So I'm going to plug in 0 for all of my x's of my original equation. So I have 0 to the third power, which is 0. So that would be negative 2 times 0. Plus 5, 0 squared is 0. Minus 0 minus 1. So negative 2 times 0 is 0. 5 times 0 is 0. So our answer here is negative 1. You might be noticing a trend when you get f of 0. So if you want a little bit of a fun challenge, look at all these problems because we have evaluated f of 0 on all 3 problems we've done so far. See if you can figure out what the pattern is. So then I've got f of 2. Okay, so that gives us negative 2 times 2 to the third power plus 5 times 2 squared minus 2 minus 1. Okay, so I'm going to actually push this up a little bit just so we can concentrate on what I've got going on here. So you've got to take care of this exponent first. So bring your negative 2 down. 2 to the third power is 8. If you write it down as 2 times 2 times 2 and do it the way we did earlier on the negative ones, then you should find you get 8. Plus 5, 2 squared is 4, minus 2 minus 1. Sorry about that. Now we're going to take care of our multiplication. So negative 2 times 8 is negative 16. 5 times 4 is 20. And then negative 2 minus 1, I'm going to go ahead and combine those to get a negative 3. So negative 16 plus 20 is 4. And then 4 minus 3 is 1. So for problem number 36, you should have gotten 7 for A, negative 1 for B, and then 1 for C. Again, I do apologize about that mistake earlier. Okay, so now let's look at problem number 38. We have f of x equals negative x to the third plus 5x squared minus 7x minus 8, where A is f of negative 3, B is f of 0, and C is f of 2. So first, we have f of negative 3. We're going to plug in negative 3 in for all of our x's. Okay. So now I've got to take care of my exponents first. So here and here. So bring down that negative sign. Negative 3 to the third power is negative 27. If you write out negative 3 and negative 3 and negative 3, you will get a negative 27. Negative 3 squared is 9. Negative 7 times 3 is 21. Bring down your negative 8. So now, the opposite of negative 27 is 27. 5 times 9 is 45. Bring everything else down. So 27 plus 45 is going to be 72. 21 minus 8 is 13. So 72 plus 13 is 85. So you should get 85 for that first problem. Now we have f of 0. So we have the opposite of 0 to the third power plus 5 times 0 squared minus 7 times 0 minus 8. So 0 to the third power is 0. 0 squared is 0. Negative 7 times 0 is 0. So the opposite of 0, it's just 0. 5 times 0 is 0. So your answer should be negative 8. Okay. So now we're going to look at problem number 38, f of 2. Let's see. Bear with me while I write the problem down. Okay, so let me just check and make sure. So we should have the opposite of 2 to the third power plus 5 times 2 squared minus 7 times 2 minus 8. Okay. So I have to do my exponents first. So 2 to the third power gives us 8. Bring your minus sign down. 2 squared is 4. Negative 7 times 2 is negative 14. Bring down your negative 8. So then the opposite of 8 is negative 8. 5 times 4 is 20. And then negative 14 minus 8 is negative 22. Negative 8 plus 20 is 12. And then 12 minus 22 is negative 10. So on number 38, you should have gotten 85 for A, negative 8 for B, and negative 10 for C. Now let's look at number 40. So we're going to evaluate first f of negative 2. Okay, so I've plugged in my negative 2's in for all of my x's. So I evaluate my exponents first. Bring down your negative. Negative 2 to the third power is negative 8. Negative 2 squared is 4. Negative 7 times negative 2 is 14. And bring down your 9. So now, the opposite of negative 8 is 8. 2 times 4 is 8. And then 14 plus 9, we can go ahead and add those together to be 23. So 8 plus 8 is 16. And 16 plus 23 is 39. Oops. Sorry about that, guys. So 39 should be A. Then for B, we're going to do f of 0. And if you figured out that pattern yet, see if you can guess what the answer is going to be for this one. So we're going to end up having zeros for all of those terms. So our answer is going to be a 9. Now let's look at problem C for f of 2. Okay, so this is what we have here. Exponents first. So bring down your negative. 2 to the third power is 8. 2 squared is 4. Negative 7 times 2 is negative 14. And then bring down your 9. The opposite of 8 is negative 8. 2 times 4 is 8. And then negative 14 plus 9 is going to be a negative 5. Well, notice how those 8s are going to cancel out because they're going to give you a 0. So your answer is negative 5. So for number 40, you should get 39, 9, and negative 5. Okay, so let's look at problem number 42. They're asking you in the directions, they say rewrite each equation as a function of x. Use f of x notation in the final result. So there are some steps that we need to know here. So step 1, when we are doing these, is put your equation in y equals mx plus b form. You might remember that as either slope-intercept form or y-intercept form, but the main goal is to get the y by itself and have the x right next to the equal sign. Then, for step 2, replace y with f of x. Okay, so pretty simple. So on number 42, it's already in that y equals mx plus b form. So now all we have to do is replace that y with f of x. And f of x is just really a fancy name for y. So your answer is f of x equals 5x plus 7. That's it, guys. On number 44, that is already in that slope-intercept form, that y equals mx plus b. So all I do is replace that y with f of x and replace the entire problem. That's my answer. Now for 46, I have to get the y by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 4x from both sides to get 3y equals negative 4x plus 12. And remember, we want that x term to come first because that's our equation they gave us. And then we're going to divide by 3. What we do to one term, we do to all of them. So we have y equals negative 4x over 3 plus 4. But remember that second step, you have to replace y with f of x. And that's it. Now on number 48, you have to add 3x to both sides because we got to get that y by itself. 3x comes first before the 11. That was what our formula said. Divide everything by 4. Now notice on this problem here, notice how the 3 that we divided everything by went into one of the terms. Well, over here, that 4 doesn't go into either one of them. So you could either have written it this way, or you could have said this. You could put it all over 4. I don't care. Either way works. But remember, you have to finish it up by saying f of x equals. Whoops. So remember, I would accept either this, or if you had f of x here and you had them both under 4. I don't care. Okay. Now on to our last problem of this lesson. Get the y by itself. Subtract 4x from both sides to get negative 7y equals negative 4x minus 10. Divide both sides by negative 7. So that gives you y equals, well, a negative divided by negative is a positive, so that's 4x over 7. And again, a negative divided by a negative is a positive, so that's 10 over 7. So again, I would either accept this or this. I don't care either way, but you have to have the f of x there. So either one I would accept, but y has to say f of x. All right, that concludes this lesson, and I wish you the best of luck.